In this video, we're diving into a heartbreaking case that exposed deep flaws in the justice system. What started as a vacation ended in a brutal murder and decades of unanswered questions. Let's get started. The time was after 3 a.m. on July 3rd, 1996, and Dana Rawlins was driving with his friends down the road. After DJing at a club and sending off some friends, he was just about ready for a good night's sleep because he was tired. Ferry Reach Road wasn't well lit, and Dana was walking down the quiet street when he saw something far away in his headlights. At first, he thought of roadkill, but Dana felt like he should look more closely, so he did. He would never live the same again after what he saw. At least one person, not an animal, was fighting to stay alive. A girl was curled up in a ball and trying to talk, but she couldn't. She had a sob. She looked up at Dana with tears running down her face and begged him in silence to save her. Right away, Dana's friends ran to the closest phone booth. It was 1996. Not many people had smartphones. Dana stayed with the girl. It was his promise that everything would be fine. The girl kept crying, but Dana tried to comfort her by telling her that help was on the way and everything would be okay. Soon, he heard sirens far away, and he could feel the girl's body getting cold. Dana knew right away that it was gone. He didn't know her name, though, which was Rebecca Middleton. He had no idea that she was only 17 years old when her life was taken away. He also didn't know that she was just taking a few days off in Bermuda. The Middleton family lived in Belleville, Ontario. Rebecca had two older brothers, Matthew and Mark, and her parents, Cindy and Dave Middleton. She went to Belleville's Centennial Secondary School and was said to be an all-around good student. Rebecca liked to have fun and was generally a very happy person, but she was also very careful. My daughter was friendly, but her dad, Dave, said she was street smart, so he didn't have to worry about her getting into trouble. Everyone where she worked at the gas station thought it was the best job for her. She was friendly and helpful, and she always smiled when she saw someone. Rebecca had a big group of friends as well. She often stayed the night at a friend's house, and she loved spending time with her family, whether it was just going to the movies or out to eat. She was also always interested in being outside. She liked water skiing, fishing, and camping more than being stuck at home. She liked to try new things and was always up for an adventure. And even though Rebecca's parents split up when she was 13, she still had a great bond with both of them. She saw them a lot, and she got along well with her step-siblings too. Jasmine Means was her best friend since she was 6 years old. Since the day they met, these two couldn't be apart. They did everything together and were more like sisters than friends. In light of this, Rebecca's parents gave her a gift as a treat when she finished class 11. But it wasn't just any gift. She went to Bermuda with her best friend Jasmine for 6 weeks. This really was the best present for Rebecca. Rebecca was excited about this new adventure in her life. She loved having fun and being outside, and she knew that she would have the best 6 weeks of her life with her best friend by her side. Bermuda is about 640 miles from the coast of North Carolina, which is a long way from North America. From where Rebecca lived in Ontario, it felt like she was living on the other side of the world. People go there for the pink sand beaches, warm weather, and 181 different islands that make up an archipelago. This is where Rebecca and her best friend were going to stay for a month and a half. They were not going to be alone now. Lucky for Jasmine, her dad, Rick, lived in Bermuda with her stepmom, and she often went to see them. As long as an adult watched over them, they would be safe and sound while they played on the beaches, took pictures, and had the time of their lives. It wasn't like Rebecca's folks were just leaving her without any help. Rebecca was excited about the trip, but she had no idea that it would be her last. Teenager Rebecca and Jasmine got on a plane, packed their bags, and left for Bermuda for 6 weeks. They took a lot of shots. Some were on the plane ride to Bermuda, some were on the beaches, and some had bright houses in the background. They had a great time on their trip for the first 2 weeks. The girls were having fun, but Rick, Jasmine's dad, had set some rules to keep them safe. To begin, the girls would not stay out past a certain time. Rick wouldn't let the girls ride bikes or mopeds because he thought it would be dangerous for them and they could hurt themselves if they fell. Rick let the girls have fun, but he watched out for them like any good parent would. When June 27th came around, Rebecca said goodbye to her sweet 16 and the joy of being 17. June was over and July was here right away. On July 2nd, 1996, the girls were going to meet up with a group of boys at a bar called White Horse Tavern. Rick dropped off the girls and knew they were going to be with boys, so Rebecca and Jasmine weren't sneaking off to meet them. The boys were on summer break in Bermuda. They were from the UK. They quickly became friends because they were about the same age. The girls had to be home by 1 a.m., but the party kept going at one of the boys' houses until almost midnight. However, Rebecca and Jasmine did not understand how late it was. The girls were afraid of getting in trouble with Rick since it was after midnight. They didn't want to call Rick because he always talks about curfews and not paying attention to time, so they decided to call a taxi. But that didn't help either. They called a taxi, but after more than an hour, there was still no sign of it. The girls stood outside the boys' house and called the taxi service over and over, but it never came. Around 3 a.m., Rebecca and Jasmine were waiting on the curb when a motorcycle went by. Dean, the driver, pulled over and struck up a chat with the two girls. Dean wasn't dangerous, and he even offered to drive the girls home. But at the same time, two guys on a different motorcycle pulled up in front of the three. They all began to talk, and the driver of the second motorbike seemed genuinely interested in Rebecca. I saw the guy playing with Rebecca's necklace, which I had given her as a gift. That's when the two guys offered to drive the two girls somewhere. Rebecca and Jasmine didn't get on the back right away, though. These people were scared. The girls knew it wasn't safe to take a ride from complete strangers, but they thought it was their only way home, and agreed after being persuaded many times. Dean, Jasmine, Rebecca, and the other two guys got on the back with Jasmine, and they began to drive. At one point, Jasmine begged Dean to slow down because she was scared, and Dean did. But the other two drivers quickly picked up speed and took a different route, and Jasmine and Dean lost sight of the motorbike and eventually Rebecca. After a while, Jasmine got home. She thought Rebecca would be there too, but she wasn't. She checked everywhere and even waited for a few minutes before her stress and fears got the best of her. She had no choice but to wake her dad up and tell him Rebecca wasn't home. Rick got up right away and the two of them got into the car. They called Rebecca's name from street to street, hoping she was somewhere, but she wasn't. They also saw an ambulance. Jasmine had a bad feeling about this, but they didn't stop looking for Rebecca. Even though Jasmine didn't know it, her gut feeling was right. They looked for Rebecca all night, but couldn't find her. Rick called the police right away to say that Rebecca Middleton, 17, was missing. However, the police would not file a missing persons report because Rebecca had not been seen for more than 24 hours. Many people have heard this story before. Everyone knows that the 24-hour rule is not a real law, but what can you do if the police won't take a report? It probably would have been at least 24 hours by the time you get lawyers or higher-ups involved. But before Rick could say anything against what the police were saying, He was cut off and put on hold. Rick was told by the police that they needed to go to Ferry Reach Road to find Rebecca after what seemed like forever. I think it's a little strange that the cops told the victim's friends where they were going to be investigating. But maybe there's more to the story than what was made public. We have no idea. But Rick and Jasmine didn't waste any time getting where they were going. Jasmine was nervous to death. She was asking her dad a million questions every second, and things didn't look good when they got to the area. There were cops, yellow tape, and red and blue lights all over the place. As Rick walked toward the police officers, he told Jasmine to stay in the car. Let's just say that Rick's body was filled with fear. Becky wasn't to be found. On the ground, there was only a big black zipper bag. It was a bag for dead bodies. As soon as Rick got to the scene of the crime, the police asked him if he could help them figure out who the dead girl was. Rick agreed, but as soon as they got close to the bag, Rick fell to his knees because he saw Rebecca, who was dead and badly hurt. Rick was meant to keep Rebecca and Jasmine safe, but he didn't know how to tell Rebecca's parents this terrible news. He was just so broken, filled with shame and trauma. Rick thought it was his job to keep Rebecca safe, but he had failed. Rebecca's parents were living out the worst fear they could have had. It's hard for every parent to let their young child go on a trip, but hearing that their daughter was killed so brutally and for no reason on a trip that was supposed to be a birthday present from them is something they will never get over. Rebecca's parents were caught off guard, shocked, and confused all at the same time. They couldn't believe what they were hearing at first, but once it hit them, they knew their lives would never be the same again. What happened to make a fun night turn so scary? Who hurt Rebecca in this way? Who found Rebecca was more important? It was, once again, a stranger. A DJ in the area called Dana Rawlins was driving down Ferry Reach Road around 3:30 a.m. when he hit something on the side of the road and had to hit the brakes hard. As he got closer, he saw that it was a young girl who was hurt badly but still living. I really mean it when I say badly hurt. She was hurt all over her face and neck, and it was hard for her to breathe. What this girl went through is hard to describe. The way the girl looked at her was still fresh in her mind. I was shocked by the pain and horror. Dana knew she needed help, even though she couldn't say anything. He then put pressure on her cuts while his friends called for help. A young girl was upset. Dana told her to stay with him because help was on the way. She was hurt, though, and couldn't be saved. Dana saw life leave her eyes. The young girl had died from her wounds. There was no pulse. That's when the police and rescue services showed up. Do you remember when the ambulance went by Rick and Jasmine? Sure enough, it was going straight for Rebecca. Investigators talked to Jasmine to get a timeline of what happened the night Rebecca went missing. She told them about getting lost after riding with two strangers on a motorbike. The police knew that those two mysterious men were the most likely candidates. Dean, the single biker who took Jasmine for a ride, was able to recognize the two men who took Rebecca for a ride. They were Justice Smith, 17, and Kirk Mundy, 21. Another man came forward and said that he had seen two bloody guys in the same spot where Rebecca's body was later found. The man knew that the two guys were Kirk and Justice as well. It looks like this case is pretty much closed. There are many witnesses, and the suspects have been named. Rebecca would get what's right, right? Sadly, the Bermuda police force messed up the investigation and everything that came after. This is a great example of making one bad choice after another. The body of Rebecca was taken for an autopsy, and the results were horrifying. She had more than 30 cuts, and what was worse was that someone used her. It breaks my heart to think about what Rebecca must have been going through in her last moments. It was sent for testing of the DNA found on Rebecca's body, but this is where the Bermuda cops made a big mistake. I don't know why, but the cops were sure that Justice pushed himself on Rebecca. Investigators thought that Justice was the one who hurt Kirk, while Kirk was just helping him. It's not clear how they came to that conclusion. There wasn't any proof to support it. The police were just making assumptions for reasons that aren't clear. So, the cops didn't wait for the DNA results to come back to 100% prove who cheated on Rebecca. Instead, they offered Kirk a plea deal. Kirk was asked to plead guilty to being an accessory after the fact and witness against Justice in court. Kirk agreed to the deal, which meant he would only spend 5 years in jail. If you thought that was bad, there's more. As it turned out, the DNA results showed that the DNA found on Rebecca's body belonged to Kirk. So it's likely that he was the one who raped Rebecca, not Justice, but Kirk. The police had already signed the plea deal, though, which is what's wrong. The court case was over, so Kirk couldn't get a different term, no matter what he had done. That's not all. Justice, the collaborator, was just let go, because the DNA was Kirk's. He could leave without getting in trouble. Of course, the people were furious. Step by step, the agents were messing this up, and people were furious. They didn't want two violent guys to get off lightly for killing a young girl who couldn't defend herself. They tried to get the cops to charge them both with murder. But under the law of double jeopardy, one person can't be tried twice for the same crime. Kirk got 5 years in jail, and he couldn't be charged again. Because there wasn't much proof against Justice, they couldn't even charge him with anything. There were hints that 2 people were responsible for Rebecca's horrible attack and death, but there was nothing solid to back these claims up, like Justice's DNA. Even worse, the authorities didn't even use Kirk as a witness in Justice's trial like they had planned. Because the judge didn't trust the witness, the plea deal didn't work out. It's all going to make your head spin. I really don't understand how one police department could make so many terrible mistakes. This is even more stupid than the last one. What did happen after the hearing, though? In this case, the defense said that the case was weak and that all the proof was weak. They were able to persuade the jury to drop the charges against Justice, and he was then free. The verdict broke the heart of the Middleton family. It looked like one of the killers got away with it, and there were no consequences. Well, I'm not sure if the 5 years Kirk had to serve was even a punishment. The Middleton family didn't give up, though. They made a lot of appeals and worked hard to get another trial. They even tried to charge them with aggravated assault and kidnapping. They even tried to get in touch with Cherie Booth, who is one of the most famous human rights lawyers in Britain, but unfortunately, nothing happened. Investigators in Bermuda took a case that was clear-cut, rolled it up, and hid it under their lack of skill. Then they were able to look people in the eye and say, "Look, we solved a murder case in record time." All of this was done to keep people's good feelings about the police force. No matter what they did, the cops were shamed and disgusted by what they did. So much for protecting their image. The story isn't over yet, though. Things are getting worse. Cindy, Rebecca's mum, asked the Bermuda police to pay them $100,000 because their so-called investigation caused them the most terrible stress. In the end, how much money did the Middleton family get? A mind-boggling $2,840. You might think I'm missing 1 or 2 zeros, but I'm not. This is the exact amount of money the cops gave to the Middleton family. The family's sadness over the death of their daughter was worth less than $3,000. In order to keep their cool, the Bermuda police worked to find more proof against Kirk Mundy and Justice Smith. It turned out that Kirk was out on bail for armed robbery when he and Justice ran into Rebecca. In other words, these guys were mean. They were in trouble with the law before they attacked and killed Rebecca. Kirk was given an extra 15 years in jail for the robbery charge in the end. The whole thing is funny now. 5 years for robbing and killing a 17-year-old girl, and 15 years for taking advantage of her. So far, Kirk Mundy is no longer in jail because he was sent back to Jamaica, where he was born. There is a killer on the run in Jamaica, and I don't even want to think about what he could be doing. What about Justice, the other guy? Well, he wasn't an innocent spectator or helper either, because Justice was arrested in 2003 for using a weapon to attack a woman outside of a club. He got 18 months in jail for his crime. That's 15 years for beating a woman, which is just as horrible. I hope the poor woman is getting better after this. What did he get for Rebecca, though? Not a year. Nothing. You'll feel shocked and sad at the same time when you watch this video. How could the police mess up a murder case that badly? I get it. Bermuda doesn't have a very high crime rate, so the cops might not know what they're doing when something like this happens. For the rest of their lives, Dave and Cindy will not have their daughter. Rick has to deal with his guilt and terrible feelings all the time because he still feels like he's going to pass out every time he thinks about this horrible event. Jasmine's best friend died, someone like a sister. Jasmine had a hard time with depression, survivor's guilt, normal guilt, and just about every other feeling you can think of. As for Dana, the kind stranger who was with Rebecca when she died, he will always remember seeing her lay on the road, cold, helpless, and out in the open. Like Rebecca's other loved ones, Dana will never forget her. It was in a program that Dana talked about how he named his daughter Rebecca to honor her memory. He feels terrible that he couldn't save her, but he promises to always remember her story and make sure that Rebecca is never forgotten. Everyone Rebecca met was changed by her, and that changes lives on even though she is dead. Rebecca's funeral was held 6 days after she died. Along with friends, family, and loved ones, a huge number of people showed up to comfort her family and offer support, love, and a shoulder to lean on. The kindness of the community toward the Middleton family was so strong. Complete strangers came together to let the Middleton family know they were not alone. We're all mad. We're all angry. We are all very angry that these tiny, worthless bugs were able to ruin someone else's life and not even get caught or punished. Thanks for watching. If this case left you unsettled, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime cases that deserve to be heard. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think justice was ever truly served? Until next time, stay informed, stay safe, and never stop seeking the truth.